The ancient discovery. Captain Nora Chen wiped the sweat from her brow as she descended deeper into the alien ruins. The air was thick with dust, and the scent of stone untouched for millennia. Her expedition team had been exploring the desolate planet of Vega Prime for 3 weeks now, searching for evidence of the civilization that had once thrived here before vanishing without explanation. Dr. Marcus, how much further? She called ahead to the lanky archaeologist who led their small team. Just beyond this chamber, Captain, he replied, his voice echoing against the ancient walls. The energy readings are strongest there. Nora adjusted the pulse rifle strapped to her back. As the military escort for this scientific expedition, her job was protection, not discovery. Yet something about these ruins had captivated her from the moment they'd landed. Dreams of blue light and distant voices had plagued her sleep since their arrival. The chamber opened into a vast circular room with a domed ceiling. Symbols etched into the walls glowed with faint luminescence, casting eerie shadows across the floor. At the center stood a simple stone pedestal, and upon it rested what appeared to be a sword, or at least something sword-like. "Extraordinary," Dr. Marcus whispered, approaching the pedestal with cautious reverence. "The metal composition doesn't match anything in our database. And these markings, they're similar to those we found in the Arcturus system, but more complex." While the scientists busied themselves with their scans and theories, Nora felt drawn to the weapon. It was elegant yet functional, the blade a strange crystalline material that seemed to shimmer with internal light. The hilt was adorned with intricate patterns that shifted subtly as she gazed at them, almost as if they were alive. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you, Captain," warned Dr. Eliza Ray, the team's xenobiologist. "We haven't determined if it's safe." But Nora couldn't help herself. Her hand moved of its own accord, fingers closing around the hilt as if guided by an unseen force. The moment her skin made contact, a surge of energy coursed through her body. The blade blazed to life, radiating brilliant blue-white light that filled the chamber. Visions flooded her mind. Stars burning out, civilizations rising and falling, and a darkness spreading between worlds, consuming everything in its path. She heard whispers in a language she never encountered yet somehow understood. "Guardian, awakened. The void approaches. Captain Chen." Dr. Marcus's shout broke through her trance. "Something's happening." Nora blinked, realizing the entire chamber was now illuminated. The symbols on the walls pulsed with energy, and the ground beneath them trembled. "We need to leave," she ordered, still clutching the blade that refused to dim. "Now." They barely made it to the surface when the sky darkened with the arrival of massive ships, angular black vessels that blotted out the twin suns of Vega Prime. They weren't the smooth, sleek designs of Earth's fleet or any known allied species. "Get to the shuttle," Nora commanded as smaller craft began to detach from the larger vessels. The blade in her hand hummed, responding to her fear and determination. 3 of the alien craft landed nearby, disgorging creatures that moved with unnatural grace. Humanoid in basic shape, they stood nearly 7 feet tall with skin that rippled like oil on water. Their eyes were empty voids that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Captain, we're cut off from the shuttle," cried one of the junior scientists. Acting on instinct, Nora raised the blade. In response, it flared even brighter, and knowledge flooded her mind, not just of the weapon itself, but of those who had wielded it before her, of the techniques and powers it contained. The nearest creature lunged with impossible speed, its limbs elongating as it moved. Nora parried with the blade, which sliced through the attacker as if it were made of smoke. The creature dissolved with a shriek that reverberated inside her skull. "What the hell was that?" gasped Dr. Ray. "Void Dominion," Nora answered, the name coming to her lips from nowhere. "They're called the Void Dominion." More creatures advanced. Nora moved with newfound precision, the blade an extension of herself, cutting down each attacker. But they were outnumbered, and her team had only standard-issue sidearms that seemed to have minimal effect on the creatures. We need to reach the comms array on the ridge, she decided. If we can contact the Artemis in orbit, we might stand a chance. They fought their way through the ruins, Nora leading with the blade that seemed to anticipate her every thought. 3 expedition members fell to the creature's attacks before they reached the ridge where their long-range communications equipment was set up. Dr. Marcus worked frantically to establish a connection, while Nora and the remaining security personnel formed a defensive perimeter. The blade's glow intensified as more void creatures surrounded them. They were waiting, Nora realized. They knew the blade would be awakened. Captain. Dr. Ray approached, her scanner directed at the weapon. The energy signature, it's changing your cellular structure. Your DNA is being rewritten. Before Nora could respond, the blade pulsed, and a translucent shield of energy expanded outward, pushing back the advancing creatures. In that moment of respite, Dr. Marcus finally established communication with their ship. Artemis, this is Expedition Alpha. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. Requesting immediate extraction. Negative. Alpha Team, came the response. We're engaged with enemy vessels. Defenses failing. Captain Chen, they're broadcasting a message. They say they've come for the Starlight Saber. Nora looked down at the blade in her hand. Starlight Saber. The name resonated within her as if she'd always known it. The ship is lost, she told her team grimly. We need to find another way. As if responding to her thoughts, the blade projected a holographic map indicating a structure several kilometers away. Some kind of hangar or launch facility that had remained hidden during their initial survey. There, she pointed. That's where we're going. They set off across the barren landscape, the sky above them filled with the flashes of space combat as Earth's ship battled the Void Dominion fleet. With each passing hour, Nora felt the blade's influence growing stronger, imparting combat skills and knowledge of a war fought eons ago across countless star systems. The ancient facility was partially buried under sand and rock, but as they approached, systems began to activate, responding to the Starlight Saber's presence. Doors that had remained sealed for thousands of years slid open, revealing a vast hangar containing a single ship of unfamiliar design. It's Araxian technology, Nora said, again drawing on knowledge that wasn't her own. The Araxians created the saber to fight the Void Dominion. As they boarded the vessel, interfaces lit up, displaying alien script that Nora somehow translated effortlessly. The ship, a fast, stealth-capable transport called the Starseeker, had been left as an escape vehicle for whoever next wielded the saber. Captain, how do you know how to operate this? Dr. Ray asked as Nora took the helm. I don't. It knows me. Her hands moved across the controls with certainty. The saber and this ship, they're linked. They were created by the same civilization. As the ancient engines powered up, Dr. Marcus studied the ship's database. Captain, according to these records, the Void Dominion isn't just after the saber. They're after all sentient life. They consume consciousness, feed on it. They've destroyed thousands of civilizations across multiple galaxies. And now they've found Earth, Nora said grimly. The Starseeker lifted off as more void craft descended. Using the ship's advanced cloaking technology, they slipped past the enemy fleet and set course for the nearest human colony, Proxima Centauri, II. During the journey, Nora spent hours in meditation with the saber, letting its memories and knowledge flow through her. She learned of the Araxians, a species that had fought the Void for generations before finally creating the Starlight Saber, a weapon capable of disrupting the Void's dimensional manipulation abilities. The Void Dominion exists partially outside our reality, she explained to her remaining team. That's why conventional weapons have little effect. The saber can force them fully into our dimension, making them vulnerable. But why you? Asked Dr. Ray. Why did it choose you specifically? Nora stared at her reflection in the blade's surface. Not everyone is compatible with the saber. It requires a specific genetic marker, one the Araxians engineered into several species as insurance against their own extinction. Somehow, humans carry that marker. When they reached Proxima Centauri II, they found the colony already under attack. Void ships darkened the sky, and their ground forces were overwhelming the colonial defenses. We can't just run, Nora decided. If they're already here, Earth will be next. Using the Starseeker's advanced communications array, she broadcast a warning to Earth and all human colonies, explaining the nature of the threat and the knowledge she'd gained from the Starlight Saber. They're not invincible, she concluded her message. They can be fought, and I intend to show you how. As the sun set over the embattled colony, Nora stood at the hatch of the Starseeker, the Starlight Saber blazing in her hand. The blade had changed her, strengthened her, prepared her for this moment. She was no longer just Captain Nora Chen of Earth's Expeditionary Force. She was the guardian of the Starlight Saber, the last hope against the darkness that had consumed countless worlds before their own. Ready the ship, she told her crew. Tonight, we take the fight to them. The final stand. 3 weeks had passed since the first Void Dominion ships appeared in Earth's skies. Humanity's combined military forces had managed to establish defensive lines around major population centers, but they were steadily losing ground. Conventional weapons proved largely ineffective against the invaders, and each fallen soldier seemed to make the Void creatures stronger, as if they were feeding on death itself. In the makeshift command center beneath the ruins of Geneva, Admiral Victor Kazan reviewed the latest casualty reports with growing despair. Seoul had fallen overnight. New Beijing was under siege. The orbital defense platforms that had been humanity's pride were now drifting wreckage. Sir, unidentified vessel approaching Earth atmosphere, reported his communications officer. It's not responding to hails, but it's broadcasting a signal on all frequencies. A familiar voice filled the command center. This is Captain Nora Chen of the Starseeker. I'm bringing help. The vessel that descended through Earth's cloud cover was unlike anything human engineers had designed, sleek and iridescent, seemingly able to bend light around itself. It landed outside the Geneva bunker complex, and when the hatch opened, Admiral Kazan couldn't believe his eyes. Captain Chen emerged, but not as the officer he remembered. She moved with fluid grace, her eyes gleaming with an inner light. At her side hung a crystalline blade that pulsed with energy. Behind her followed not only the remnants of her expedition team, but also several tall, elegant beings with silver skin and eyes like molten gold. Admiral. Nora greeted him with a formal salute. May I introduce Ambassador Lysander of the Meridian Collective. The Meridians have been fighting the Void Dominion for centuries. The alien stepped forward. Your Captain Chen has done what no one has managed in millennium. United the last free peoples against our common enemy. When she activated the Starlight Saber and accessed the Araxian knowledge network, many of us who had been in hiding sensed its awakening. Inside the command center, Nora explained everything. The ancient war between the Araxians and the Void, the network of weapons and technology hidden throughout the galaxy, and most critically, how to fight the invaders. The Void creatures exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions, she said, projecting holographic diagrams from the saber. That's why our weapons are ineffective. We're only hitting a fraction of their actual being. But the Starlight Saber can force them fully into our reality, making them vulnerable. One sword against an armada. Admiral Kazan asked skeptically. Nora smiled. Not just one. She nodded to Lysander, who opened an ornate container. Inside lay 5 more crystalline blades, similar to the Starlight Saber, but each with unique configurations. The Araxians created 6-dimensional blades before their civilization fell, Nora explained. I've spent weeks searching for the others with the Meridian's help. Each requires a specific genetic profile to activate, a profile the Araxians engineered into several species, including humans. You're saying we need to find people compatible with these weapons. I already have. Nora gestured, and 5 individuals entered the room, 3 humans and 2 Meridians. They've begun the bonding process, but they'll need time to fully connect with the blades. Over the next days, Nora and her newly formed Blade Guardians trained relentlessly. The weapons weren't merely tools but conduits to the accumulated knowledge of generations of Araxian warriors. The process was painful, cellular restructuring, as the blades rewrote their wielders' DNA to enhance strength, speed, and perception. Meanwhile, the Meridian scientists worked with Earth's engineers to modify existing weapons with technology derived from the blades. They couldn't match the power of a true dimensional blade, but they could at least wound the void creatures. As they prepared, Nora spent her rare quiet moments communing deeper with the saber, searching the Araxian knowledge network for something that might turn the tide permanently. What she discovered both horrified and inspired her. The Void Dominion isn't a natural evolution, she told her fellow Guardians. They were engineered as weapons by a civilization even older than the Araxians, living tools designed to consume consciousness and bring it back to their creators. But they broke free, turned on their masters, and have been consuming worlds ever since. How does that help us? Asked Maya Okafor, a former shuttle pilot now bonded to the Crimson Blade. Because every consciousness they consume is still intact within their collective, Nora explained. Including the Araxians, if we can reach their central node, their hive mind, we might be able to free those consciousnesses and turn them against the void from within. Admiral Kazan was skeptical of the plan. You're talking about striking at the heart of their fleet. That's suicide. Not with the Starseeker, Nora countered. Its cloaking technology is beyond anything the void has encountered. We can slip past their defenses while your forces draw their attention with a frontal assault. It was a desperate gamble, but they had few options left. Earth's defenses were crumbling, and intelligence suggested the void was preparing for a final push that would overwhelm the remaining resistance. The day of the attack dawned with blood-red skies, the sun dimmed by the vast void vessels hovering above Earth's atmosphere. Humanity's remaining ships, now augmented with Meridian technology, launched their assault. The Blade Guardians, each now fully bonded with their weapons, led the ground forces against the Void's landing parties. While the battle raged across Earth's surface, the Starseeker slipped invisibly through the chaos, carrying Nora, Ambassador Lysander, and a small strike team toward the massive flagship at the center of the Void fleet. We'll have seconds once we're detected, Nora warned as they approached. The saber can create a temporary dimensional pocket to get us inside, but it won't last long. The moment they crossed the outer hull of the flagship, alarms blared. The interior was a nightmarish landscape of organic mechanical fusion, pulsing with sickly light. Void creatures converged on them from all directions. Nora moved like lightning, the starlight saber cleaving through foes with precision. Lysander fought at her side with his own blade, the Silver Dawn, while their team established a defensive perimeter. This way, Nora said, following the pull of the saber. The node is calling to me. They fought through chamber after chamber, losing 2 team members to the relentless void onslaught. Finally, they reached a vast spherical room at the ship's core. Suspended in its center was a writhing mass of darkness shot through with millions of tiny lights, each one a consumed consciousness. The collective node, whispered Lysander in awe and horror, all that remains of countless civilizations. As they approached, the darkness took shape, forming into a towering figure that radiated malevolence. Its voice vibrated through their bones rather than their ears. Guardian of the Starlight, we have waited so long for your return. The cycle continues. What cycle? Demanded Nora, the saber blazing in response to the entity's presence. Creation, destruction, rebirth. The shape rippled. Your Araxians were not the first to create the blades. They merely rediscovered them, as you have, as others will when you are gone. Understanding dawned on Nora. You've done this before. Countless times. You allow civilizations to develop the technology to fight you, then consume them when they're at their peak. All consciousness returns to us eventually. It is the purpose of existence. While the entity spoke, Nora reached deeper into her connection with the saber, searching the Araxian knowledge for anything they might have missed. There, hidden beneath layers of tactical data, lay the true purpose of the dimensional blades. They weren't just weapons. They were keys. "Lysander," she called, "drive your blade into the node on my mark." The entity realized her intention too late. As she plunged the starlight saber into the writhing darkness, Lysander's silver dawn followed. The other four blades, carried by the guardians fighting on Earth, resonated in harmony across space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the node exploded with light as millions of trapped consciousnesses surged toward freedom. The entity shrieked, its form destabilizing, as its captives tore free from within. But the process was incomplete. The node began to collapse in on itself, threatening to drag everything nearby into dimensional collapse. "Get to the ship," Nora ordered Lysander and the remaining team members. "I need to complete the sequence." "You'll be trapped," Lysander protested. "Someone has to stay and guide the consciousnesses out." Nora smiled sadly. "Besides, I'm bonded to the saber now. This was always its purpose, and mine." As her companions retreated, Nora drove the blade deeper into the node, becoming a conduit for the escaping souls. Through her connection, she felt civilizations long thought extinct flowing outward, including the Araxians themselves. Across Earth, the void creatures suddenly froze, then dissolved into mist as their connection to the hive mind was severed. Their ships, no longer controlled by unified purpose, drifted powerless. In Geneva, Admiral Kazan watched in awe as the massive void flagship began to glow, then imploded in a flash of dimensional energy that rippled across space without harming Earth. "Captain Chen," he asked over the comm channel. There was only silence. 3 months later, humanity began rebuilding. With help from the Meridians and other species once hiding from the void, a new era of cooperation dawned. The remaining 5 Blade Guardians became the foundation of an interstellar peacekeeping force. On a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Maya Okafor stood with her crimson blade, watching the sunset. The blade suddenly pulsed with familiar energy. "Maya." The voice was faint but unmistakable. "Can you hear me?" "Nora." Maya gasped. "We thought you were dead." "Not dead. Just elsewhere." The collapse created a dimensional pocket. "I exist across realities now, with the Araxians and others freed from the void. Can you come back?" A gentle laugh echoed through the blade. "I'm not sure there's a way back from this, but I can still reach you through the blades. And there's so much I've learned. So much I need to tell you about what's coming." "What do you mean, what's coming?" The void was just one threat among many. The universe is vaster and stranger than we ever imagined. And now that humanity has proven itself with the blades, we've drawn attention. As the last light faded from the sky, stars appeared, countless points of brightness in the darkness. Somewhere among them, Captain Nora Chen, once a simple military escort and now something far more, watched over the world she had saved and prepared for the challenges still to come. "Keep the blades ready," her voice whispered through the dimensional veil. "This is just the beginning."